even have that project,
Right.
going.
Yeah.
Which is incredible. Which we probably got another 6 or 8 months maybe left on that. I don't know, whatever. But when that's done, that'll be great. Really, and if you look at it, myself, I kind of think it's pretty good timing. I mean,
It is.
the refinery,
Right.
and if all the dominoes fall, everything works out good.
Yeah.
Cautious optimism, I guess, is kind of
That's a good way to say it. Yes.
And but a lot of things to happen to get all that to go. But I mean, fishing should be in a very good place. Probably you're right. The best it's been in
The
years.
first refinery built in the United States in 50 years,
yeah.
so it's a big deal.
And just the attention. I was talking with Jonathan Huseman last week or so, and he was saying the same thing. Just the fact that we've gone through that process, and this is where it potentially is landed. I mean, the attention on that's a pretty big deal too. Pretty big for Oklahoma. Pretty big for for Cushing. It's weird for us to kind of be in that.
I think it's a game
spotlight.
changer
Absolutely.
for this. I mean, between Oklahoma City and Tulsa, you're going to have people driving in. I've already contacted quite a few builders saying, you got to buy some land, you got to get the building, because
We're gonna need the housing.
apartments,
Yeah.
everything, small homes, big homes. I mean, it's crazy.
If I were I can't remember his name exactly. All the roads to 2 hotels. I'm like, you picked a pretty good timing because you're probably gonna be full all the time. That's probably really good news, for him and all the other hotel owners as well. But there are probably more coming. I would think that's going to increase our area population quite a bit.
Well, and there's going to be people that don't live in Cushing, that live in Acra or Ripley or Winco or Stillwater or Drumright. It's just incredible. And then how many businesses are going to come in to support, even just to build it, but also keep supporting.
So building I have to think it would take several years.
Oh yeah, I think they said three to five.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds reasonable to me, but that's a pretty complex thing, and I'm sure with the EPA and all the other regulations, all the hoops they've got to jump through, I'm sure that is
Yes.
not.
They
uncomplicated.
explained it a couple of years ago when they first
Yes.
came,
Yeah.
and it was way over my head. The hydrogen, and they're starting to build cars that run on hydrogen. So it sounds like they're going to be able to use almost every single thing they produce.
That's pretty cool.
So
And there are really no other. Well, there's no new refineries, right? Like you said, 50 years.
Right.
And so that technology, you're going to be way ahead of the game than anybody else out there. So it's got to be something that's going to be obviously at some point it's going to get a lot of national attention.
Right.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
A little town like yourselves to be
Right.
in the middle of something like that.
And to have lost, is that correct? 3 refineries through the years?
I think that's right.
I remember coming here back in the 70s, and there was still at least one of them or 2 of them running.
Right. And that was a good matter of fact, Marilyn and I just talked about that last night during that show. Don Amon usually sits in that seat and told us with me, and he was gone, and so Marilyn graciously sat in, but she was saying that, I said to her, I said, well, that was before my time.
Oh,
I
okay.
came about further than that as well. But I just remember being even then, they were still trying to get out of that funk of the refineries leaving, and it was still kind of a depressed.
It was,
a good topic to bring up. We talked about the oil business and Cushing in the 90s, early 90s. He was like, he was always kind of with the sour taste in the mouth.
You know what? I need to ask Marilyn, because when I came here, I wrestled in the old round gym back in '72. But it seemed like we drove over a viaduct.
It used to be here. We talked about that last night as well.
Where was it?
Well, just not this street right over here, but the next one over, the viaduct. No, it was right there. It was right
Oh,
there.
okay.
So if you turned left at this corner right here, then about a block instead of going up the viaduct.
But why was it there?
It was there to go over where the refineries were.
Oh, okay.
Main Street didn't come straight in like it does now. I used to visit here in Cushing we were talking about this. I used to visit Grand Fishing when I was young because my brother Mike Kennedy lived here.
Yeah.
You know Mike. And so I come out here in the summertime or something like that. And I always thought, why doesn't that road go straight back there? Why doesn't, I mean, you get, in the top.
So you came in on that.
You came that way, you had to turn, you kind of went over the viaduct and then came in downtown and went back up to Main Street and then you went
Okay.
east.
So it was just to get you downtown, is what?
Pretty much.
And over.
Yeah, that intersection is one of the main intersections you came to, the first one, after Moses, I guess it was Cleveland. So, anyway, that used to be and the road down there, when you go on to Main Street, used to just curve, it just curved and went right on. That was just Main Street where it started. So all of that from there back to the west was.
I just remember when we went over it, you could look down and see
Absolutely.
all the stuff. Okay.
And it took a long time for that to. I always thought when I was younger, and just kind of in Cheyenne or whatever, it just kind of looked very industrial looking when you came in, you know. And so,
That's true. I hadn't known that.
It's just
Because they have those conveyor belts with coal lines.
all
For
huge
miles.
stacks,
Yeah.
huge, massive. And so it just reminded me of that. I don't know why I
Right.
put those two things together, but anyway, I did. But yeah, it was just kind of a different look. Obviously, when you came in, I always thought, well, just build a road straight, go right there. Eventually, they did. They didn't do it, so they figured it out.
Yeah. Wow.
But anyway, yeah, kind of a cool thing. But and I don't know. I guess they're. I heard last night, or Bruce told us last night, or told me that yesterday afternoon that they were down to maybe 4 different locations that they're still working on negotiating for the location. And I think that's been a big question on the refinery. Is,
I've been asked that many times.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Cushing.
Exactly. Somewhere.
Cushing. Yeah.
And
So are they even looking at the old places, or can you not build on?
I don't know. I mean, I think that's a big question because, where can you build in Cushing that you can dig down and put pipeline? There's not already pipeline. I mean, there's so many pipelines underneath their feet.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy. I've looked at maps.
Yeah.
And it's just.
Yeah. So I think that's still a question. Now, Mr. Ward of Southern Rock, Bruce told me yesterday that he's going to do a remote interview, I think, on Friday. So we're going to record that.
Okay.
And then we're going to play that back at some point too. I just want to make sure that we kind of get it all lined up well with him and get all the information and questions. Questions about rail, of course, we'll talk about that today too. What's the situation on rail? I know the right of way is kind of there, but what's it going to take?
Right.
Is that of interest to the state? Is that of interest?
Oh yes.
All those, and
I've
the
talked
other
to
benefits of that.
Commerce, the governor, Speaker McCall, Treat.
All the
They're excited. What does Cushing need to get this done? And I said, right now they're looking at 75 to 100 million infrastructure, and they were like, really? That's nothing compared to. I'm not. That's a lot to me.
But that's good to hear that.
Yeah.
Actually, because if they're looking at it that way, they're thinking, oh, well, gosh, I was.
Well, because it's 250 million that we did it prior.
Oh, wow.
And
Wow,
so
just for that project?
Yeah, and they're only going to spend $4 billion. And so they're like, wow, that's a good, And this group was coming in spite of, they said they wouldn't come to Pryor if you didn't do this.
Right.
So it's.
And these guys have really already set the bar. They said, we're coming anyway. We're going to do this.
Right.
And that's kind of what, I think, from a point of view of Cushing, everybody's like, yeah, right. The refinery's good. Yeah, right. And it should be coming around the mountain, right? We're already singing that song. It was like,
I've heard that song.
We haven't. Nobody really would. Well, they didn't announce where it's going to be. They didn't announce, if they're all. I said, well, I think all that's going to. But again, cautious optimism. And this is kind of what Jonathan and I were talking about the other day, because he just said, I think that's a good measure, because nobody really knows. Everybody's afraid of.
Well, the EPA stopping it, or someone.
All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I talked to the CEO of, just between us.
Yes.
The CEO of Plains.
Oh, yeah.
Houston.
Okay. Yeah.
And he said, we've got an empty pipe that they could use to Stroud.
See, that's.
We, if they would buy from us, we'd probably give them the pipeline.
Absolutely.
So there's those kinds of things that are going on behind that,
So,
you know,
I
nobody.
mean, see to me, that kind of stuff is encouraging because there's stuff that exists that we don't have any clue on what could be possibilities. and all that kind of thing. So, the fact that, I mean, the fact that rail, will be back in Cushing, and that again is good for Oklahoma. I mean, my son, speaking of my son, he was a huge train fan
Yes.
back in his young days.
Yeah.
But we just for fun, we would take the train down to Fort Worth.
Oh, wow,
Just kind
yeah.
of birthdays and stuff like that. Do that. But it's just kind of exciting to hear that's another possibility, and the benefit that would bring product and traffic.
Right, right.
It's almost like making you a port like Port of Catoosa or something like that,
is.
where you have something like that available to you.
Right.
So,
Well, and if you put a train there, you've got to have conductors and you've got to have people to manage that, and so
it's more jobs, it's employment, it's all sorts of stuff.
yeah.
So, I mean, it's really kind of hard that I asked Bruce this question when he first was going to make the announcement he was going to be talking about it. And I said, well, we know what fishing looks like before the announcement. What's fishing going to look like after? And here we are. Now we're on the other side of that. And fishing, I think, still a little, I would call it maybe a little deer in the headlights yet. We're still kind of waiting on
sure.
information. There's a lot. It's going to go slow or seem like it's slow, and then all of a sudden we're going to be in the middle of it.
Yeah, and part of that is, okay, it's gonna go here.
Yes.
Then the land around that's gonna go crazy. And,
Yes.
and so it's like one step at a time. But the steps are this tall.
Exactly. It's huge.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right. So.
Well, I'm ready to go whenever
Okay,
you are.
we're down here to 15 seconds. We're going to go here. I'm going to turn the mics on in just a second, and then we're going to be ready.
Where are the mics?
They're kind of right in front of you right now.
Do I look at you?
You can. I've got a camera here. We'll show you here in just a
Okay.
minute, and I'll do a quick intro, and then I'll introduce you, and we'll start. So
Okay.
the intro's going to be short today.
You are watching the Hub Network, the studio show, people, community, progress. Here is your host, Joe Kennedy.
Hi everybody, welcome to the studio show. I don't know what number this is because I don't know when we're going to play it back, but that's always the exciting part, right, of this kind of stuff. We're excited to have Mr. John Talley, Representative John Talley, in the hot seat today here. We'll get to him in just a minute, but proud to have him in the studio with us. We got a lot of good questions for him, and I can already tell you, just from our short visit here before we get started, it's going to be a lot of good information from John, and we appreciate him so much for coming in. So we'll take a little bit of break, and because I don't know what's happening in the world right now because we're recording it, and who knows, there could be another 100-mile-an-hour windstorm between now and the time we play this, so we'd have to talk about that. But we'll get all that stuff in a little bit later. But we're going to come right back and be here with John Talley here in just a minute, so stay tuned on the studio show.
So you're doing it just
We'll
like
be right back.
a show.
Watch the studio show Wednesdays at 10:30 a.m. People, community, and progress. Join us live on the studio show or the Hub Network Cushing Facebook page.
The studio show is brought to you in part by Stillwater Transfer and Storage and AAA Self-Storage.
Watch Cushing Matters the third Monday of every month. Only on the Hub Network.
At Davis Dental Studio, our patients are our friends. Unlike the big commercial facilities, Davis Dental Studios wants you to know you're not just a number. We strive to bring personal and quality service to each patient. Dr. Rebecca Davis has over 18 years of experience as a caring and compassionate dentist. She and her highly trained staff will make sure your visit is a positive one. So remember, when you and your family need dental care, Davis Dental Studio, you're not just a patient, you're a friend.
In my mind, I was never going to walk right again. Before we were through, we had walked 23 steps. And that was my first steps of freedom. This patient is saying thank you.
Bank of Cushing, a branch of Blue Sky Bank Pahuska, wants you to know they are still the same friendly hometown bank. Local people that live, work, and worship right here in Cushing. Providing you the same great service, more convenient products and technology, making your local banking experience even better. A great bank, serving a great community. Bank of Cushing, a branch of Blue Sky Bank Pahuska.
Since 2003, Pro Events has had one singular focus: great audio, video, and lighting systems. Never confusing our industry with the PC crowd, Pro Events always provides you with the best, most reliable options for your house of worship, school, or corporate training facility. Make your system stand out from the crowd. And remember,
For the best AV, you know where to go visit ProEvents.pro.
It's all good, man.
Participate in the show. Send an email to thestudioshow102@gmail.com.
And you're on.
All right, here we are back on the studio show, and as I always say, every time we have a show, I say, if we only had the microphones on during the breaks, we get to hear all the good stuff, right?
Yeah.
John Talley, good to have you here. Thank you for coming and being here with us this
Thank
morning.
you.
And it's a pleasure to have you in the studio.
It's an honor to be here.
Well, thanks for coming. We've already had a really good discussion about some of this stuff, but I really want people to kind of know who you are as well.
Okay.
Because I know obviously you've campaigned and you've been around the district and you've been around the state, I'm sure. But tell us a little bit about how you got into all that mess, how you got into politics and doing that, and your family and all your background and what you really do besides politics. That's a big question, but I'll just let you start in and take off. I could ask you some questions, but
that's okay. For a few years, lived in Las Cruces, New Mexico. Went to an all-Hispanic elementary school.
Okay.
During the beginning of the Vietnam War.
Wow.
My dad was in the. He got out of the Army, and so he worked for the government. And we lived at White Sands Missile Range.
All right.
And that's where I fell in love with trains, because we would take our sack lunches on Friday and ride the train 10 miles out of town and then come back to school.
Wow.
We moved to Pine Bluff, Arkansas, the deep south. So all my friends were black, living on the base.
Gotcha.
We got desegregated. We got moved. They closed the base school, and we got moved to Whitehall. And so went through, if you've seen the movie, Remember the Titans, where they were arguing and fighting. That's how it was at my school in 1965.
Gotcha. That was a hit home biography almost of where you were at. Yeah.
And then. So my dad was doing biological warfare, didn't know it. The FBI would come by our house and say, here's what's going to happen to your family, your dad. And he came home one day and said, I don't like this. I don't like what we're doing. We're moving to Anadarko, Oklahoma.
Wow.
And so went to junior high and high school in Anadarko, fell in love with wrestling because I wasn't that big for football, and came to OSU to wrestle, met my wife, and I graduated with a degree in vocational agriculture.
Okay, I was reading that on your biography a little bit.
Finished up, so I did my student teaching in Collinsville, and one of the teachers retired, and so I had taught the rest of the year there.
Yeah.
And here's how I think. They said, well, you're the newest teacher, you're going to talk about sexuality and prevent children and stuff, and so I got a cow uterus, and we digressed it and looked at it and talked about what babies are and look at and stuff. So that's how I think. I like the hands-on approach. About 30 years ago, the Republican Party approached me and said, would you run for state representative? And I said, no, my kids are too small. I'm too involved with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Right. I knew you were big in.
And so I didn't do it.
Yeah.
And just have been working, this is my 30th year to work for FCA.
Wow.
So I've been coming to Cushing since 1992.
Wow.
And Christy Young was
Yes.
one of my FCA people. And so we used to take 100 kids rappelling over by Perkins at Horse Thief Canyon. And I had a bunch of parents,
Gotcha.
help and stuff. So then 6 years ago, I was approached again to run, and
They weren't giving up. They weren't giving up.
no, and so I ran
Yeah.
and won, and so our son teaches Oklahoma history and civics in
Yeah.
Stillwater. His wife teaches pre-K. My wife retired 35 years of special education.
I knew she was a teacher. I was
Yeah,
familiar with
and
that.
so, and our daughter lives in Lincoln, Nebraska, and is an attorney
Okay.
that helps people.
Wow.
So our whole family has always helped people.
Wow.
And basically, that's what a state representative does, in my opinion,
Sure.
is finds problems to go out and solve.
Right. Well, honestly, now that is a lot of information, John, to unpack there. I mean, everything from the FBI visiting your house to
Yes.
to wrestling to teaching and all that good stuff. I mean, but it's good. See, we wouldn't have known any of that. I wouldn't have known hardly any of that. That the FBI was after you as a young kid. Who would have
Yeah,
guessed?
yeah.
No, that's great. But that interesting on how that all kind of weaves together,
Right.
isn't it, for what you end up doing. There's a lot more that you do, though, over on your property in Stillwater, and which I think is very interesting. And I know that the Tigers have been over there.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
A lot of, I don't know if you call that team building or leadership
Yes.
camp or whatever it is, but tell us
Well,
a bit
it's
about
both.
what that is.
Well, so I didn't become a teacher. I started being a youth pastor.
Gotcha.
And I noticed, and I hate cliques.
Yes.
And I noticed that even in my youth group, there were cliques. These kids would only talk to these kids. And so I heard about this ropes course thing and team building. And so we started going out to OSU, which is a great course.
Absolutely.
But if it rained or it was bad weather and you missed it, you couldn't get back in for a year.
Right. Oh,
So
wow.
I just built a course
Gotcha.
at my house. And then I started using my kids to work with other high school football, baseball, basketball. And then when I became the area FCA guy, I just continued to do it. So we average about 3,000 kids a year.
Wow.
Yukon High School football team, the Cushing has been there, basketball teams from all over. It's really funny. College teams.
Absolutely. We've seen a bunch of that. But the thing about that is I've been over there with the team at Cushing too, but just to see how you lay that out. I mean, obviously there are other people there, coaches, other people that are really skilled in what you're doing, and they know the program very well, and it's a very well-oiled machine. Really.
Thank you. I use a lot of the OSU athletes.
Yes.
Because I can work them and pay them legally.
Right.
But we go to prisons, we go to churches, we go to schools. I mean, I've got 5 lined up this fall, which you're welcome to go to. Surreal, Oklahoma, Ardmore, Oklahoma. We go and do team building with the teachers.
Gotcha.
And try, and here's my point. If I get to know you better, I can watch your back. And if I heard someone say, well, Joe's a bad person, I go, wait a minute, he's my friend.
Yeah.
I know him, and I wish that kids would do that for each other.
Right.
And so that's why I do the team building.
Building relationships, the bond, the trust
Yes, sir.
that you have to have. Because really, if you go over there, and I'd encourage people to come over and visit.
Oh,
I don't know if you
sure.
want people to do that or not, but just to see it, and the wall thing, I think it's so interesting. The wall that's out there, because there's no way to get up that yourself.
No, you can't.
But you basically you line them up and say, okay, go up the wall, and they have to figure out, well, I'm going to have to use the people around me. They're going to have to help. We're going to have to, and that is, in essence, how you build the team, right? So it's an interesting concept to watch the psychology of it,
Yes, sir.
and then to watch the physicality of it, and everything come together, and the athletes get it.
Yeah.
Once they get it, and you can see by the time you do the exercises there, when you're all at the back up top, and you're doing all those interesting, we could talk about those are interesting
Yes.
junkets in themselves, you know, just to do those, but how that develops over the course of a few days.
We're doing the OSU football team tonight.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And most people have pushed a wheelbarrow. I have
Yes.
two wheelbarrows. And one of the activities is you get in the wheelbarrow, I'm going to push you through an obstacle course, but I'm blindfolded.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So,
Of
do
course.
you give good directions? Do you take directions well? And are there any blind spots in my life
Mhm.
that I need to work on and get help for? And so, if I do that and we talk about it, we'll have a better team.
Absolutely, and it's learning how to articulate what your needs are at the very end, and under that pressure of, if I don't say this right, I'm going, we're crashing.
Right.
We're not going to make we're not going to
Right.
make it.
Yes.
So that you're simulating that pressure of what it's like in a game, or what it's like
Sure.
in the pressure in the
Or life.
yeah, life, or whatever
Yeah.
it is. You're right.
Yeah.
And so, very interesting on how that works, and how the athletes develop that sense of bonding and
Yes, sir.
trust and all the stuff that it
Yes, sir.
takes. And teams are better for it. I can tell you that they walk away changed a little bit.
I hope so. Yes, sir.
Well, that is super interesting, and I think somebody that has taken that initiative to see the value in that and build it on your own property out there. I mean, it's kind of cool.
Thank
I mean,
you.
I mean, all the apparatus.
I've done
we have
some
out
of
there-
it at the Capitol
Oh, really?
with the Republican representatives.
Now, I think all of us would agree. We need
And-
some team building in politics.
Yes,
That would help.
it was interesting.
Yes.
They could not come together.
Isn't that interesting? And
Yeah.
we almost want to take the whole state house out there and put them through the course and say, now go work out the budget, right?
Yeah,
Now
right.
go see what you can come up with. So
Yes, sir.
that's very interesting, and I think it's a great school. Now you're an ordained minister as well, I think.
Yes, sir.
Is that right?
Yes,
So
sir.
you worked through youth, and you worked through
Well, in
college
fact, I
sports.
won't marry a couple. I won't do their wedding
Okay.
unless they go through some of the team
Ah.
building activities. And they find out a lot about each other.
I bet pretty quick. I bet you.
Oh,
that course.
it's fascinating. Yes, sir.
Well, what a great way. Now, that's a different way to do marital counseling, right? Put them through the course out there. I think that's probably a good thing. I would say if things are a little rocky at home, to pick up the ropes course over at John
Yeah.
Talley's place.
Yeah.
It'll help you.
Well,
So-
I would invite anybody that's watching, if they're interested in going with us to a prison. We're going to go about the middle of July, and Coach Gundy likes for the guys to go because they see when they make a poor decision how many freedoms you lose.
Ah, yes.
But we run up here to Hominy, so it's an hour away,
Right.
and we do team building activities with them.
Wow.
And whoever goes gets to talk about their life and the experiences that they've gone through.
Wow. And so that in itself is probably a good thing just for the participants doing that, right? Because
Yes, sir.
they're expressing that to other people up in front of people, and getting to open up and make themselves a little bit more vulnerable, which is really kind of what the ropes course is about, right? You're
Yes, sir.
vulnerable.
Yes, sir.
Who's going to help you? How are you going to get through it? How are you going
That's
to do all that?
exactly right.
Well, I think that is all incredibly interesting and incredibly beneficial for everybody that goes through that. And I think
Thank you.
I know Coach Morgan sure would say that. I've heard him talk about how beneficial that is for the team over there, and how beneficial it is for the individual athletes, when they come away from that experience. So,
Well, he did a trust vault, Rusty did, off the bleachers,
oh wow,
probably 12 feet tall. After you go through it and you build that trust, his feet were at least 12 feet high.
Wow.
And he fell backwards into his player's arms. You should never ask kids to do something you're not willing to do yourself. And I think that built so much trust both ways.
Absolutely.
When I ask you to do something and you trust me, then it's easier for you to do it.
you got to follow through, right?
Right.
You have to,
Right.
man. Well, the big deal for Coach Moore to do that. I mean, if your feet are 12 feet, I mean, you're
Right.
way up there. It looks a lot higher than that. You're 18,
Yes, sir.
20 feet in the air.
And he's a big guy.
He is a big guy.
He's stout. I mean, he's a wrestler.
You're going to be making sure those players are good and ready.
Yes, sir.
Hope you've done your work in the weight room, right?
Yeah.
So, that's great. Well, listen, we're going to continue our visit with Representative Talley when we come back here in just a minute. But he's got a lot of interesting things to tell you. This is just the tip of the iceberg. But we're going to get into all the politics and the State House and all the important stuff here right after this. So stay tuned here on the Studio Show. Be right back.
We'll be right back.
The Studio Show is brought to you in part by Stillwater Transfer and Storage and AAA Self-Storage.
Well, hello, Whitney. How are
Hello,
you?
John. So here's the proposal packet for the new mobile app.
As long as I'm running this thing, there ain't gonna be no mobile app.
Introducing the new mobile app, making your banking experience even easier. It's so easy, even John can use it. Bank of Cushing, a branch of Blue Sky Bank, Pawhuska.
We have a help tab if you need help. We will have...
I don't need help. I'm pretty good at this.
You are good at this.
Since 2003, Pro Events has had one singular focus: great audio, video, and lighting systems. Never confusing our industry with the PC crowd, Pro Events always provides you with the best, most reliable options for your house of worship, school, or corporate training facility. Make your system stand out from the crowd. And remember,
For the best AV, you know where to go visit ProEvents.pro.
When you have a team of physicians and nurses that really truly care about their patients, that translates into patient care.
It's a small practice, it's a small town. Everybody really takes that time to put the patient first.
Everybody cares what's happening to me and that I'm making progress and I'm gaining my freedom back and my mobility back. This patient is saying thank you.
RCB Bank is more than a transaction. We work to make your life easier. We help build your business. We finance your dreams. We grow your legacy. We build relationships with our communities. Come in to find out why our customers always say, RCB Bank. That's my bank.
It's all good, man.
Participate in the show. Send an email to thestudioshow102@gmail.com.
Watch the Studio Show Wednesdays at 10:30 a.m. People, community, and progress. Join us live on the Studio Show or the Hub Network Cushing Facebook page. Watch Cushing Matters the third Monday of every month, only on the Hub Network.
Here we are again and again, slow on pushing the buttons. Why? Because John, not only we were discussing it, he was doing a demonstration right here behind me. Listen, John has some really good information. We were just talking through some of this team building stuff and how important that really is. And really, it comes down to, we're just talking about life and death there, John,
Right.
and how team building really started in the military, is what you
Yes.
were just saying. And if you're
Well,
going to
and
jump in a foxhole with somebody, yeah.
I think of, so if you're in the military and your life depends on your brothers, you hear that all the time.
Right.
I think in our society right now, kids are facing life and death type things.
Right, all the time.
With cell phones.
Yep.
You know, I've heard the superintendent of Public Instruction of Oklahoma talk about libraries, I think that I hear kids talk about pornography on their phones, and yet we don't take the phone away from them in school.
Right.
So I wish we could do something about that.
Right. And all those things, really, some of those things are kind of, the technology has made them available, and some of the parents aren't even aware of some of the stuff.
For sure.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, that is all incredibly interesting. Now, I tell you, I think we should require, I think it would be great in politics if we required, as training for becoming a politician, before your first session, you must go through the team building
that would be, I would love that.
With all the rest of your colleagues, you know.
That would be great.
Because to me, I think you wouldn't have near as many budget problems, and you could work through the ideas a lot easier, right?
Yes, sir.
What have you found? Speaking of that, Dan, let me not get out of order here, but you've been a state representative since 2018. Really,
yes.
It was after Lee Denny.
This is the end of my 5th year.
Okay, this is the end of your 5th year. So you've been through a couple of elections now,
yes.
And so you've gotten your feet wet, and certainly the blinders have been taken off. Now you see it for what it really is. So as it relates kind of to that, what we're talking about here, team building, I mean, what does that look like to you at the state?
I'll give you a perfect example.
Okay.
I'm sitting on the back row my freshman year, and about 3 seats over, there's a guy, a representative from Okmulgee, Scott Fettgetter.
Okay.
And he is pounding on his desk, and he's yelling and screaming, and I was like, and he had long hair, little short guy, and he's screaming and yelling, and I'm like, oh my God, this guy's crazy. And about 2 months later, I'm in Tulsa at a teachers meeting, and the teachers come and sit down with us and then leave. Every 30 minutes, we get a new group. And finally, they leave, and I'm sitting there this close to Scott.
Right.
And I said, Scott, I got to tell you the truth. I've been afraid of you, but listening to you right now, you're a pretty cool guy. And he said, John, I am very passionate. I never graduated high school.
Wow.
I own 3 businesses.
Wow.
They elected me to represent them, and I try to do that, but I'm a passionate man. Now we're best friends.
Wow.
But talking and communicating and asking questions taught me this is one of the coolest guys in the legislature, but I didn't know it until we visited.
But you had to reach out to him first
Yes.
and to get to know him, ask that first question. And I think, you know, I'm a pretty, what am I doing hosting the show? Because I'm a pretty inward guy. So it's not natural for me to strike up a conversation with somebody. And
you do it well.
If you know me, you'd say, you know, what's he doing on there? Yeah. So, but sometimes that's the hardest thing to do is to reach over and make yourself vulnerable, right? And to say, you know, hey, I'm Joe. Nice to meet you. What do you do? And you get to know them. And that is the hard. That's a hard task sometimes.
I always think of it like sitting at the back of church.
Right.
And you see someone come in by theirself, sit down by theirself, who has the testosterone to go over and say hi, here's who I am, and stuff like that. And so when I was a kid, I started making myself do that because I wouldn't want to be that person sitting alone.
Right. And just putting yourself in their shoes, right? A little bit. Well, that's very interesting, and it's interesting that is how that plays out in politics, because I think everybody thinks, well, you're an elected official. I mean, everybody obviously likes you. They elected you. They put you in there, and you're supposed to just be able to do the job automatically, right? Not quite that way. You kind of have to make it what you need to make it in order to get things done, right?
Yes, sir.
What did that look like? This was kind of you were a freshman in Congress when you were making that introduction to Mr. Tell me his last name again.
Scott Fettgetter.
Fettgetter. Okay.
Yes.
Well, you got to get that. So you know, just reaching out to him, was that one of the first people you met really in the House?
Yes.
So from then on, I guess now you have his information. How long have you been there, and that probably moved you along as well.
Well, just getting to know people and working for FCA. I've been everywhere in this state, been in every county. My son does a game for kids in his classroom. I'll go in there and I'll say, look at the Oklahoma map. If you can find a place, I can tell you where it is. And if I can't, I'll give you a gold dollar.
Wow.
And, but it has to have a school, because I've been to all the schools.
Right,
I've been
gotcha.
to 590 schools in Oklahoma.
Wow, that's
And
a
so,
lot.
yeah, over 30 years, you know, I traveled.
Easier to get to them, yeah. You
Um,
spend a lot of time, a lot of windshield time.
And Oklahoma is a great state. It has so many cool things. So I'm honored to get to be here. But what I was going to tell you is Kenton Paskowski is from Beaver, Oklahoma.
Okay.
His sister was killed in the Perrington tornado the other day.
Oh, goodness,
And
wow.
in about an hour, his sister's going to be laid to rest in Perrington. And so I told him I prayed for him this morning and his family and stuff. And just getting to know him, he's a rancher, but sitting in the back, looking at the back of 101 people's heads, I thought there's no way I'll ever get to know him. And so I've just made it important in my life to visit with every single person in the house, know where they're from, know something about them, and that way I can pray for them and get things done because I know where they're coming from.
Well,
now I can hear their voice and not see who it is. Hear their voice, I know who it is.
Who it is.
That's weird.
But I think that's a basic skill, is it not? Just to be able to reach out and to get to know somebody, and really, kind of a lost skill to some of the youth these days. It's not as important, but how important is it really? Because if you know somebody really well and you know something about them and you can relate to them, much easier to talk to them about what they want to see out of life, or want to see out of a state house bill, or something that would help you get your job done, right?
You have no idea. So I have, it's still alive, corporal punishment bill. I wanted to stop the spanking of special needs children.
Okay.
It's House Bill 1028, and so several people got up and argued my bill.
Okay.
And it barely passed. And then one of the people that argued the hardest against me came up to me and said, "John, I need your help to get my bill passed." And so it's hard, but the Speaker of the House, Charles McCall from Atoka, Oklahoma, is a banker. And he came up to, in my freshman year, I said, "Speaker McCall, I don't have any bills." And he said, "John, don't worry about it. Talk to people, find out good bills, and co-sign on." And I said, "Well, what's some good advice?" And he said, "John, don't be married to your bills. Try to pass good bills, but if they get shot down, don't take it personal."
Right.
And that's been very good information for me.
Well, it's so hard to do because really, just like I'm going to get his name wrong again. Scott. Be very passionate about it. When you're very passionate, it's a little harder to fall when things don't go quite the way. But in politics, I've heard that from Lee Denny. I've heard it from you. You really can't take it personally because people don't really always know you. Certainly, constituents don't always know you.
Right.
And sometimes the criticism is not directed at you, but at the process or at.
And sometimes it's directed at you because you didn't get something done that you thought you could.
Right.
I love helping people. I don't like politics.
Yes.
I don't like arguing and fighting over things, but I do like helping.
Right.
So I'm excited to be at the state capitol another year.
Yeah. So your term will end in 2024, I guess. But you're always as a House representative, you feel like you're always running a campaign, probably.
Yes,
out there greeting people and getting to know your constituents and that sort of thing. So that's got to be a little bit of pressure on you too, just the constant.
Yes, it is. It's sad because sometimes you feel like you're on camera.
Right.
And I guess I don't mind it because it's part of the thing that you do. I think I'm a good representative because I listen to the people and I try to solve problems.
Right.
And I'm going to keep trying to do that. And if you like me, vote for me, and
well,
there's nothing you can do.
The thing about that is there's always something you can find to criticize people if you're looking for it. But I think the lesson here is that we could all get more done if we know a little bit about everybody's situation.
Sure.
And we all working for the betterment of everybody around us. And so that's obviously the attitude you've taken to the
Yes, sir,
house.
it is.
Well, and I don't think there's any other way best demonstrated than actually what you do, other than being a representative with the team building and teaching those lessons to younger athletes and other people, other corporate, I'm sure corporate entities. And if I was a corporate entity, I'd be out there doing that too, because I think it's an incredible way to get over a small beef about quit stealing my lunch in the lunchroom, that kind of thing, and get on to the bigger stuff, right?
You know, before I was a state representative for Cushing, Jeff Beasley had hired me to do team building for his software group, and that was an interesting group because you had a lot of introverts that were brilliant at solving computer problems, but needed to work together at communicating.
Couldn't talk to their coworkers though.
Right.
Couldn't tell them that, man, quit coming to work like that or saying that.
Yeah.
You can't stand it, right? So I mean, it's so important in everybody's life, in everybody's everyday life.
Right.
If you can master the certain just basic skills.
Right.
You don't have to have a PhD.
No.
You just have to be some common sense, right, and be able to talk to people, and let them be vulnerable with people, and let them know who you are, and find out who they are.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's a pretty. It seems simple.
Yeah, but it seems simple, but it's not.
It's not. It's not.
Yes.
Well, I just think that's very interesting, and I think it's what's been effective for you, obviously, in this political job, which is not always a fun thing.
Yes.
You can't be. I'm sure there are days you're like, why did I do this? Well, we're going to talk to John a little bit more about some other things. I want to bring up the refinery issue with you.
Yes, sir.
And a lot of things like that. We've got a lot to talk about there. I want to hear your perspective on that and what's going on with the state.
Okay.
So we'll get to that just as soon as we come back right here on the studio show. Stay with us.
We'll be right back.
Watch the studio show Wednesdays at 10:30 a.m. People, community, and progress. Join us live on the studio show or the Hub Network Cushing Facebook page.
At Davis Dental Studio, our patients are our friends. Unlike the big commercial facilities, Davis Dental Studios wants you to know you're not just a number. We strive to bring personal and quality service to each patient. Dr. Rebecca Davis has over 18 years of experience as a caring and compassionate dentist. She and her highly trained staff will make sure your visit is a positive one. So remember, when you and your family need dental care, Davis Dental Studio, you're not just a patient, you're a friend.
Hello, Whitney. How
Hello,
are you?
John. So here's the proposal packet for the new mobile app.
As long as I'm running this thing, there ain't gonna be no mobile app.
Introducing the new mobile app, making your banking experience even easier. It's so easy, even John can use it. Bank of Cushing, a branch of Blue Sky Bank, Pawhuska.
We have a help tab if you need help. We will have...
Oh, need help, I'm pretty good at
You are good at this.
Since 2003, Pro Events has had one singular focus: great audio, video, and lighting systems. Never confusing our industry with the PC crowd, Pro Events always provides you with the best, most reliable options for your house of worship, school, or corporate training facility. Make your system stand out from the crowd. And remember,
For the best daily, you know where to go visit ProEvents.pro.
Watch Cushing Matters the third Monday of every month, only on the Hub Network.
When you have a team of physicians and nurses that really truly care about their patients, that translates into patient care.
It's a small practice, it's a small town. Everybody really takes that time to put the patient first.
Everybody cares what's happening to me and that I'm making progress and I'm gaining my freedom back and my mobility back. This patient is saying thank you.
RCB Bank is more than a transaction. We work to make your life easier. We help build your business. We finance your dreams. We grow your legacy. We build relationships with our communities. Come in to find out why our customers always say, RCB Bank. That's my bank.
The Studio Show is brought to you in part by Stillwater Transfer and Storage and AAA Self-Storage.
Participate in the show. Send an email to thestudioshow102@gmail.com.
Exactly. Yeah, we just, if you just heard that, we're not talking about slobber too much during the breaks, but we did mention it very fast when I turned on the microphone. This is a great conversation with Representative Talley. I appreciate so much his approach to all this and just learning, you know, why we have so many problems really in basic differences. And he was just making the point here that we have so much more in common than we do really ever different. And a lot of times we just assume that we're completely on opposite sides of the spectrum and we can't get along, and so we don't get along.
Right.
And that's really not the case at all.
Most of the time it's not.
And even in the political spectrum, and we all have an issue with this. You know, I do too. As far as, you know, well, you're from a different political persuasion than I am, and so I automatically assume this is your position, or I assume this is your position, and so that makes negotiation even harder, right? Until you
Yes, sir. It does.
So, you know, I find that all interesting. I kind of want to see how you're going to put that into practice here, John,
Okay.
in these kind of these big issues. Now, you guys just finished up a session here a month or so ago, I guess, at the State House, or maybe less
Yes,
than
sir.
that.
We're actually still in special
Oh,
session.
you're still in special session.
Yes, sir.
So the special session, tell us what the subject of the special session, isn't that a specific thing? You
Yes,
come back
it has to be a specific thing,
Right.
and it is basically to override any bills that the governor vetoed.
Gotcha.
That we don't want him to veto. So we can override that veto and it becomes law.
Right, you gotta push them on through, but you gotta have the votes to do that,
Right.
so there's a lot of, persuasiveness going on, a lot of negotiation going on,
Yes.
in the halls of the state.
People
House.
don't realize that there's 4 ways the governor has. He can veto something, he can sign it into law. The last 5 days of the regular session, he can pocket veto. That means he doesn't have to say anything, he just sticks it in his pocket and doesn't do anything, and it doesn't become law.
Wow, okay.
Well, I'm sorry, he can veto it, but he doesn't have to say why.
Gotcha.
The other ones,
Explain
he does explain. And then the last thing is, he cannot sign it, and it automatically goes into law.
Gotcha.
And people don't know that he did not sign the budget.
Really?
We agreed, the Senate, the House, and the governor agreed on TV about a week before we passed the budget, and he never signed it.
Never signed it.
But it became law because he didn't sign it.
And so, but he didn't sign it, but he also didn't explain why he necessarily didn't sign it either. And
Right.
so, we don't really know.
Right.
Any guesses that you'd be willing to speculate here on the show?
I think there was little tiny pieces of it he didn't like, and the budget is the only thing he can line item veto.
Gotcha.
The others is either yes or no, but I just think he didn't want a line item veto, but he didn't like it exactly.
Right.
There's politics in everything.
Absolutely.
Churches have politics, families have politics, and I think partly he may be thinking he wants to run for a national office or something. I don't know.
He didn't want to be necessarily tagged to the item that he was maybe dissatisfied with, and
Right.
so, and that's always the case. And sometimes if you can be not pigeonholed on something later in the future,
Right.
let's say, well,
Yeah.
you were
Good.
against that. You know,
Good way
whatever.
to say it.
So that's probably what he was trying to do there. But the bottom line was the budget was signed and it is
Or
effective
the
now.
budget
Or will be.
became law, but it
Became law.
wasn't signed.
Right. So that's now will be in effect, I guess, as of
Yes.
July 1st. Is that correct? Is it a fiscal year, or do we do a calendar year?
No, we do a fiscal year.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So July 1, that would go
I
into-
believe so, yes, sir.
So that's usually the case. Usually the budget is one of the last remaining things that you guys are.
Well, it's only, did you
specifying.
know, and most people don't, it's the only thing technically in law that we have to do, is
Gotcha.
present a balanced budget.
Right. A state has to do that. You have to balance.
Well,
it.
we
Oh,
put that
Oklahoma.
into our statute.
So not every state has to
I
do
don't
that.
know.
I would.
I'm worried about this one, not
Exactly.
others.
Exactly. But it is, of course, as a city, you have to do the same thing. You can't run a deficit unless it's kind of within your We have different issues
Right.
here that we can take, move
Right.
money around. But in the state, I'm sure it works the same way. But at the end of the day, the budget has to be balanced. You can't be running a deficit. We can't spend more than we have to take in, that kind of thing. So always a big a battle there at the end, getting everything in there that you want and things that you don't want out, all that kind of stuff. So let's talk about, speaking of that, we were talking about earlier a little bit about the refinery issue here in Cushing, and you said something that it was interesting, and you know, numbers are so different based on your perspective, right? You know,
Right.
numbers. Bruce was originally, when he was talking about this information with the refinery at our budget study session here in Cushing, he's talking about needing a good $75 to $100 million, you know, to get this thing across the finish line. Well, that is a huge number.
It is to me.
If you're looking, yeah, it certainly is to me, everybody. But from a city standpoint, it's a big number too, because there's just not that much money laying around. Nobody has that laying around, right? Especially just waiting on something to invest in. Well, that's not the point. But this refinery is going to require a lot of work locally and really at the state level, because this is a big deal for the state, is it not?
It is huge. And I go back to 5 years ago when I first met Terry Brennan. He said one of the things that he wanted to see us accomplish was different revenue streams of money coming in to take care of Cushing. And he mentioned a few, and he said we need one more big one that, you know, is going to help all the citizens of Cushing. And I just think this could be the other big one.
Right.
Because if it comes in, and I think it will, it's going to take 3 to 5 years to build. So you've got companies coming in to help build it. And then once it's built, at some point it's going to have 400 employees, or could have.
Yes.
And so you've got food, gas, housing, it's going to change the face of Cushing, much like the Main Street is going to improve it. It's just messy getting there.
Right. And that's a good thing that we were kind of talking about that too, because the Main Street project, okay, it's years behind when it should have been done. But the fact is that now that this is a prospect, the question I go back to with Bruce was, what does Cushing look like before this decision, and what does Cushing look like after the decision? Well, after this decision, we'll have some infrastructure work done that would absolutely be necessary.
Right.
Our main road going through town is going to be much, much better. As these other things that you talk about come into Cushing, more sales tax revenue, more revenue for the school, property tax revenue, everything that's going to help all that stuff. Now, our school's in pretty good shape, but
we have great schools.
Yes, it was one of the bright spots in Cushing for sure. But sales tax revenue from all the ancillary things, people spending that money in Cushing is going to be a big deal, and what is going to greatly increase the budget in Cushing, I would think, from that standpoint.
Oh, I definitely think so. And people don't realize how many phone calls and emails and stuff, and I want to let people know, emailing is the best way to get a hold of your representative or your senator, because it gives us a paper trail.
Right.
For example, Rick Arberg called me and said, John, having Main Street torn up is sending a lot of trucks out on county roads and just destroying them. What can we do? And so we've got Mark Wayne Mullins looking at, okay, what is some federal money we can use for county roads? So it's Tom Cole is looking at it for us.
Right.
But it started with someone saying, what can we do?
Right.
And Bruce is really easy to work with because he called me and said, hey, and when I say me, I really mean the people at the state capitol, because you don't get anything done by yourself.
Right.
And so when Bruce called me and said, hey, we're interested in this, I mean, the first refinery built in the whole United States in 50 years is crazy.
It's a big deal.
Awesome. It's a big deal for Oklahoma. It's a big deal for southern United States. But I said, you sent me some numbers, but you haven't sent me any breakdown. And he said, I'll get to work on it. And so within a week, he had a breakdown. We need $75 to $100 million to do the infrastructure for this.
Right.
And so I went to the speaker and the speaker pro tem and the governor and I said, hey, my city's needing this kind of money. And they were like, oh my gosh, that's so much better than other
Yes.
places wanting hundreds of millions.
They actually thought that was a conservative
They
number.
did.
That surprisingly, everybody,
Yes.
you know, that's interesting.
So I'm really encouraged. And then when you talk to some of the pipeline companies here, they're really encouraged because here's a way to sell some that's coming right here to Cushing from all over the United States. So it's exciting news.
The free market concept of all that stuff working, I mean, a refinery, and again, let's emphasize the fact that no other refinery has been built in 50 years in the United States, and that's going to happen in Cushing, Oklahoma. The national attention that's going to get, the business attention that it's going to get, the business opportunity that's going to bring to Cushing, the ancillary business that's going to bring to Cushing is going to be a huge impact. You can't really calculate all of it. That's just massive. And so we should remember that patience is going to be a virtue here in the sense that it's going to be a long project to get going. But once it does, we're going to start to see all of that.
Yes.
And it may be that it gets to be so much that we might even be complaining about it, John. I bet you we can find ways to figure that out if it does.
There's people that call me and complain about Main Street.
Right. Sure.
And I'm like, I understand it's a pain in the gluteus maximus muscle, but when it's done, it's beautiful.
Absolutely.
And you see that when you're driving down highways in Oklahoma, they're rebuilding the bridge, they're resurfacing the road, and you got to slow down, and it's a pain, but when it's done, it sure is nice.
The end result. And I think right now is going to be, you know, if you're in Cushing, it's easy for you to live somewhere else, Stillwater or Oklahoma City or Tulsa, and say, well, that project will be done in a few years, but we have to live through it, right? So what we have to remember here is that it's all for. This is what we've been looking for. I mean, this project doesn't just come by every other week.
No.
I mean, you don't get this opportunity, and so it's going to take some patience. It's going to take some fortitude. It's going to take some persistence to get through that. But the end result. Think about the opportunity it's going to afford every child right now in Cushing in the schools or in the workforce.
Yeah.
The opportunity will be there. Right. You mentioned other pipelines that are here. That will be able to work with the refinery, an opportunity that will be there. Well, that's only going to increase jobs at those facilities as well.
Right.
So
I'm thinking of engineering students that graduate from OSU that come to work here.
Absolutely.
We don't lose them to out of state.
Absolutely.
They come and work here. So it's bigger than my mind can wrap around.
And this is kind of everything that the governor and people like yourself talk about when you get into politics. These kinds of projects this is the big crowning achievement, right? For the state of Oklahoma. It's not about Cushing, it's about the state of Oklahoma. And I think we kind of have to get our mind around that a little bit and start to understand that. I know that we're going to eventually have a conversation with Mr. Stephen Ward, who's over the Southern Rock Energy Partners, and going to give us some information on that and tell us why they chose Cushing. But in your opinion, what do you think the differences were, and why is Cushing a great place to make this happen?
I think we have some land around Cushing. We have one of the largest oil storage places in the world with sweet crude. Not everybody has sweet crude. Right. We are becoming a state that wants to help. And so we have some money and we can invest it in the infrastructure stuff. So it's like everything coming together at the right time, at the right place.
Right.
And Cushing is used to having, I remember as a kid driving here and there were 3 oil refineries. Right. So that's not unusual for us, and I can imagine it's going to be an oil refinery for 50 to 100 years because of the way they say they're going to build it.
Yes.
That it produces hydrogen. People are starting to make hydrogen cars, so seems like every single thing that they will produce will be used, and it's almost sci-fi type stuff that they're doing.
Absolutely, and I think that's one important thing we really haven't talked about, is that because there's been no refinery built in the United States in 50 years, that's all, and I'm sure they're retrofitted with newer technology and all that, but we've not had a refinery built for the purpose of utilizing all the new technology and doing all those new
yes,
things.
sir.
And this is really propelling, again, this is bigger than the state of Oklahoma, the country, into another phase of technology and use of natural resources and that sort of thing. So this will eventually be a big deal nationally.
Yes.
And really, it says it right out on our interest to Cushing, you know, or we say it on our website, global impact. It will have global impact.
Yeah, I could see us selling gasoline all over the world.
Absolutely.
From Cushing, Oklahoma.
Right. And so it's so hard for some of us that live here to wrap our heads around that. But there's so many things that Cushing does well, and that is one of them. The energy business is one of those. And so I think it's something that we need to embrace and be proud of, and look to how we can help. How can we help as citizens in Cushing? What would you say? How can we help push this along at the state level? Is there anything we can do?
Not really, because we're kind of on top of it right now, and part of it is just them telling us what they need, so we can start working on how can we get that accomplished. How can we put some money in the right place to do what they need?
Right.
Do we need to fix the roads? Do we need to do concrete paths? I mean, part of it is they've got to pick a place and then commit some money.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess the biggest thing what a part of our goal is here is to be informed, stay informed, and be in the know.
Right.
And maybe support things as they come up, or say maybe we don't want to go that direction, but know kind of what's going on, stay informed on that, and spread the word that we need everybody's participation a little bit, you know, to help get this done. It's your community, right? It's our community, and so we need to. A lot of decisions you're making, decisions at the polls are going to affect a lot of people.
I know the VOTEC, it's not VOTEC, Career Tech has told them, hey, we're willing to train people.
Bring them to us.
It's surprising how many representatives and people high up in the government of Oklahoma did not understand what Career Techs do.
Man.
And so there's so many things it's going to affect.
Well, I can tell you, just for Central Tech out here, I know my son is in a pre-engineering class.
Oh,
out here,
okay.
and so obviously, fostering programs like that will benefit the community, the nation, the state in the future as you go forward. I mean, those are important things. You can see your career paths sometimes, and I think it's going to be influential in that regard too for a lot of young people to see something like that built in Cushing, America. That is be beneficial to the whole world. So. Anyway, that's interesting information, John. I appreciate so much your perspective on all that. Thanks for coming in, and thanks for giving us that information. We'd love to have you back.
I'll come back
and let us kind of know what's going on, especially when this gets all going. I think we're kind of in the it's going to happen, but things take a while to get moving.
Right.
One day it'll be going so fast we won't be able to keep up with it. It's going to be a lot.
That is for sure.
So we'll try to stay on top of it with you and others that are in a position to kind of know, and we appreciate you imparting that information to us
thank
today.
You.
So,
yes, sir.
Anything else that you want to say that?
Well, I was just thinking about, as I cross Oklahoma in so many ways, I mean, we go hunting in the Panhandle, and a lot of those schools are shrinking and a lot, because kids are graduating from high school and not coming back to Hooker, Oklahoma, or Guymon, or Beaver, and I just think, by having something like this, people are going to graduate and want to come back.
Absolutely.
And that's exciting to me.
Teachers as well. Families are going to want to live it.
Right.
All of those problems that we kind of see and face every day that we talk about all the time. I mean, this is such a big project. It remedies a lot of that, right?
Yes, sir. That's what I was thinking.
Revenue always makes things a little bit easier, especially from the state level.
Yes, sir.
You don't have to worry so much about the big numbers, and we know that we can meet the budget and even increase the budget. And so, just continue as citizens to think about
Right.
what you can do to support that project, just like Don
Yeah.
Amon said the other night.
Well, I was just gonna say, if you have something you need to discuss, my phone number, my email, contact me. I'll talk to anybody about anything, that's important to you.
We'll do that, and we'll put that information up
Oh, okay.
on our site
Yeah.
too, when this
You bet.
show airs, and so you can get a hold of John. I can tell you right now, John is incredibly easy to talk to and a good
Well,
guy.
thank you.
And he really does care about what's going on in the district here, and wants to move not only our community and the others close to us, and the state ahead, forward, and progressing
sir.
in everything that we do. So, thank you, John, so much for coming in. We
bet.
will have you back, and I can't tell you how much we appreciate you imparting all that information to us. So,
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate
for coming.
you.
You bet. All right, guys, that's it for us here today on the studio show. We'll see you next time. Who knows what date it is when you see it, but you'll see it soon. So, take care. We'll see you next time on the studio show. Goodbye.
Is that okay?
Thank you for watching The Studio Show. People, community, progress.